Under siege, Jerusalem under siege. Just a few things about this story. First of all is Zedekiah. He, like some of the other kings, was a son of Josiah, but the people of Judah never accepted him. You see, Jehoiachin was still alive. He was in a prison back in Babylon, and the people held as long as he was alive. Zedekiah really wasn't their king. He was only a puppet for Babylon. And so you see a weak king throughout this story. You see him constantly being afraid of the city officials and sneaking around. And that's why he secretively sent for Jeremiah. And he had to be pretty bold to overturn their word. And you'll see this also in the next story when he doesn't have much power. And that's because he really wasn't accepted as king. Egypt, like we said before, Egypt is behind all of this rebellion. You say, well, why do they keep rebelling, one king after the other? Why don't they just accept Babylon? No, Egypt is desperate to have Jerusalem continue fighting. At this point in this story, the Babylonians owned everything down to what's called the Brook of Egypt. That was the dividing line between the funnel that runs north and south down, and that's where Egypt starts, which includes then all of the Sinai wilderness and all of Egypt. And that's where Babylon was. And everyone knew that the next step was to go ahead and go in. And Egypt knew that they were in danger here. So they kept egging Jerusalem on, kept reassuring them, we will come and help. Things will be better under us. We won't tax you as much as we have in the past. And so they kept rebelling. Egypt was behind all of this. As I said before, they were being set up by Egypt. Egypt knew that Jerusalem would finally fall, but hopefully by then something will happen where they would be strong enough then, or maybe they would just weaken Babylon just enough to keep them from coming. I want you to notice the things that are being taken away from Judah. God gave Abraham certain promises and certain agreements came about through Abraham. Abraham was promised the land of Canaan. In more particularly though, he was pointed out a particular place, that spot, that place where he sacrificed Isaac or was going to, and that is the temple spot. So you have the land and in particular that place, that very special place. Then they were promised a nation, that they'd be a nation. And then added to that, they said kings. You'll have kings as well. And third, he said, I'll give you my blessing. I'll give you my, and then he increased that. Not only will you have my blessing, but you'll have the presence of God. He will come and live in, first of all, the tabernacle, and then in the temple, the presence of God. These are the 6 promises that were given to Abraham. All but one in this story and in these stories is being taken away. First of all, they'll be taken off the land. The special place, where the temple at, destroyed, taken away from them. They will no longer be a nation after all this, and they'll no longer have kings. And on top of that, the presence of God has already left the temple. They no longer have the presence of God. The only thing they have left, and the only thing they take to Babylon with them, is the blessing. I will bless you. I will be with you while you're there. You can call on me, and I will listen. That's the only thing they had left. That was the one shred of promise from Abraham that they could keep. Now, after the captivity, it said you can have the land back. You can rebuild the temple with that special spot. You'll have a nation, but you won't have, and you'll still have the blessing, but you won't have kings. That's coming in the future. And you won't have the presence of God. That's coming in the future. And those are the 2 areas that was fulfilled by Christ. Jesus came. He was the King of the Jews. He was the Son of God, the presence of God. Stay with us as we continue to go through these 6 stories from Jeremiah about the fall of Jerusalem. Come back next week when we continue on with Story Insights on the Story of the Week. We'll see you next week.